We're going to call the meeting of the school board. Today is Tuesday, November 23rd. Thanks for attending. Item 1 on our agenda is adoption of the agenda.
I move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees adopt the agenda as submitted.
Second.
Got a motion by Don, second by Laurel. Any board discussion on the agenda? Seeing none. Any comments from those in person? Seeing none. Any remote public comment?
No, Mr. Cassiopo.
Okay, board, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Just as a note, we received a message from Trustee Walker. He's ill, so he won't be attending tonight. Item 2 on the agenda is the flag salute. If you'll all stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we move on to item 3, I received a little sad news earlier in the week that a former employee of the school district had passed away, so I just wanted to ask for a moment of silence for Jan Marie Carmody. She was a long-term employee and a bus driver for the school district. So if you will, just join me in a moment of silence. Thank you very much. We would just want to wish her family all the best and hope they're carrying through what I'm sure is a trying time for them. So thank you for that. Item 3, Superintendent's Report. This is for information only. Superintendent Stokes.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. Also like to welcome members of the community that are here with us this evening. At our last meeting of the board, there were some questions regarding when or if the face mask mandate might be lifted within the district. And I've contacted our friends at the health department to talk about current conditions, not only in our school district, but also in the Quad County region, which includes Lyon County, Story County, Douglas County, and Carson City. During the month of September was the highest number of cases that were seen in the schools, and the numbers that I have in front of me are simply those that are associated with the schools. And the number of cases in Carson City at the high point was 45 students. And again, these are only school-related students, students that are of school age. And that dropped to a low the final week of October of 11 students. So we have done very well in terms of managing new cases, and we realize that this is not just something that the schools are doing. These are families that are taking the correct responses and taking action when students get sick, or being able to quarantine or find out for sure if students are having those symptoms and getting tested. So I'd like to thank the community for these efforts. Since Halloween, we have seen a bit of an uptick with the highest numbers seen last week. We had 29 new cases. And so while we are doing better than the school districts around us, we're still seeing some new cases in the schools. We have the expectation of watching the numbers of new cases that may happen in our district, not only following Thanksgiving, but also the Christmas vacation time. So we're going to keep an eye on these cases, and then if there are any changes, we'll certainly let the community and the schools know prior to the beginning of the second semester. I'd also like to remind everybody that the tree lighting ceremony, a very popular event here in Carson City, will occur on December the 3rd. We have a large number of our students in the elementary schools that have been preparing. As you know, that's one of the highlights of the event, when our school-age children have an opportunity to sing Christmas songs. And that will occur at 5:30 on the Capitol building steps. And then just finally, Mr. President, members of the board, I'd like to wish our students, staff, and all of our community members a happy Thanksgiving. And not to get ahead of myself, but school will resume on November 29th, which is Monday. And that's my report.
Great, thank you, Richard. Moving on to item 4, board reports. Let's, this is for information only, and do we have a representative from Carson High School here? Seeing none? I know, our board representative. How about Pioneer? Okay, seeing none? How about Nevada Association of School Boards update?
Let's see, we had our conference, have we met? No, but we not in this meeting. So we had our conference, and that was successful. And just in case anyone hasn't heard, Trustee Walker was recognized as the Nevada State School Board Association Director of the Year, and Joe Cassiopo was recognized as School Board Member of the Year. So congratulations again to you.
Thank you.
And also, I forgot, because I don't have it here because we did it before, but Bridget Gordon from Carson High School was recognized as District Employee Making a Difference.
Great, thank you, Laurel. Moving on to board reports. Dawn?
No report tonight, but I just want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. And hope the staff is enjoying their time off this week.
Thanks, Dawn. Lupe?
I do not have a report.
Okay, thank you, Laurel.
Mr. Brown would like to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. And Dr. Ward at Fremont is excited for after Thanksgiving break, because they will be bringing back the Santa Avenue, which is when the students have the opportunity to purchase gifts for their family, ranging from 25 cents to $15. And the students, they weren't able to have it last year, and the students missed it an awful lot, so they're very excited that they can bring it back this year. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Richard?
I have no report tonight.
Thank you, nor do I. No report for me. And again, I just want to extend, while everybody's here, a happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Hope you enjoy the season with friends and family, or whatever everybody does. But we're coming into the holiday season, so I just wish everybody all the best. Moving on to item 5, association reports. Do we have any association reports? Seeing none? Renee, anybody online?
No, Mr. Cassiopo.
Thank you. It's going to be nice someday when I don't have to keep turning back and forth. Item 6, presentation of the 2021-2022 Carson City School District Board-Sponsored American Citizen Essay Contest winners. This is for discussion only, and we're going to have Mr. Stokes lead us off on this. And I just want to say congratulations to all the students really who participated, and then certainly the winners. This is, for me, this is just a lot of fun. It's every year I'm amazed at the quality of essays that get written by students at every level of school. You can tell they put in a lot of time. They work with I'm sure they work with their family and their teachers to polish it up. And I'm just really proud of the students and the hard work they put into this and everything they do. So, Richard, if you would, please.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. It's my pleasure to report to you that we had another successful outing of our 2021 essay contest. It's my privilege to welcome our students who participated and submitted winning essays. It's also my honor to welcome their families, their friends, their teachers, their principals, all who are here celebrating with us tonight. As you know, the school board has sponsored the American Citizen Essay Contest since September 11th, 2001. And since that time, we have had really nice participation from schools in our community who have risen to the topic that has been provided by our school board. And I hope it's been a good experience for them. I know it's been a good experience for those of us who get to hear their essays and also who get to read them as part of selecting the winners. I'd just like to let you know that this year we had a total of 193 entries, and that's down a little bit from last year's number of 198 entries. We had 81 entries from the elementary school, 18 from the middle school, and 93 from our high school students. The topic this year was 20 years ago on September 11th, 2001, many people became heroes in the face of tragedy. As we honor the 20th anniversary of the tragic events of 9/11, pick someone in your life who you feel is a hero and describe why. And so our students, as they developed their essays around this particular topic, they were graded by their adherence to the topic, quality of writing, and originality of thought. A panel of 6 judges, who are all school teachers in our district, reviewed the essays. Those judges were Lacey Carey, Rhonda Wallace, Hillary Mendeguia, Robin Williams, Greg Spriggs, and Pam Copperthwaite. I'd like to thank them for their time and their effort in reading and judging, which is the hard part, all of these 193 essays. I'm sure they would appreciate a round of applause. Thank you. Over time, we've been able to develop monetary prizes for the winners of this contest. And so tonight, we have $80 for each first place winner, $30 for each second place winner, and $15 for the third place winners. And we've also offered an opportunity for those who were finishing first place in their individual category to read their essay to the board and also to our audience. So we'll start with the elementary category first, and I'd like to invite Mr. Colin Schwartz, who is a 5th grade student at Mark Twain Elementary. He was our third place winner in this category. I'd like to have him come forward, and I have a card of thanks, his check, and also a certificate for him. So Colin, if you'd come up, and please bring your family.
And while Colin's coming up, family, if you'd like to come up here and get a picture from the front of your student reading, by all means, you're welcome to come on up to get pictures and whatnot. And I'll just remind everybody that while masks are required as usual indoors, students, when you're coming up, if you are wearing a mask and you wish to take it off when you read your essay, that's fine. We just ask that when you're done, you put it back on when you sit down. Thanks, everybody. Sure, and if everybody would stick around at the end, we'll do an overall group photo, if you have the time. Thanks.
Congratulations, Colin. Very nice. Our second place winner in the elementary category is fifth grader Jessica Hagan from Seeliger Elementary School. Jessica, congratulations. Well done. And our first place winner in the elementary category is Miss Lillian Marler, fifth grade student at Empire Elementary. You want to get one without her mask on? 'Cause she's got to take that off to read.
You're gonna have to take off the reads. Go ahead.
Go ahead and take your mask off. You're
Show
okay.
that smile.
Very nice. Okay.
You gotta take it off while you read.
All right, Lillian, here's your essay. And if you'll just kind of talk right into that microphone.
9/11 or 9/11 is used to refer to the events that took place in the United States on September 11, 2001, when terrorists attacked the World Trade Center in New York and the Pentagon. It was a tragic time when millions of people died and many heroes tried to save people's lives. But most of all, people died and many families were heartbroken. My hero is someone that changed the world, my grandpa. The reason why is he was a veteran, and I'm very thankful for that. The way that I love my grandpa is different from any other way. He was loyal, helpful, caring, and strong, and he was a really big hero to this world. And he gives me hope and courage. He is only 6 minutes away from our house, so I can see him whenever I want. As I mentioned before, it is all truly thanks to the veterans that we now have the most of the world healthy and great again. Veterans have spent a good fraction of their lives fighting for the generations that come after them. They risked their lives hoping to make a better tomorrow, so the people who weren't even alive yet could live in a better world, and for that I thank them. Let everybody remember the determined and bold soldier or otherwise for the amazing services they have committed to not only us but our country as well. As a person who once served in the armed forces is by definition a veteran, but a veteran to me, a veteran is more than just a formal soldier. However, to me, it always seems that they're still leaving a very significant portion of people out of this acknowledgement. Although we ladies may have not taken a part in actual combat until someone who has been a member of the services, but also pilots, captains, doctors, and nurses. Most recently, the females of America had been helping as nurses, messengers, and spies in etc. in their own way, doing a part in creating the America we know today. The America we see today is somewhat peaceful, but down inside is a tragic, terrifying, and heartbreaking, but there's still love, hope, and caringness. But the problem we see today is COVID-19, a terrible virus that is killing millions of people. Now more about my hero. Grandfather symbolizes the internal power of human spirit, which will always gravitate towards freedom no matter how many seemingly insurmountable objects are placed in its path. My grandfather has a flag that says 9/11 and is a sad photo of it. And if you walk in the garage, you can see that he is a handyman and he works there most of the day, working on projects almost all day. That is what keeps him going throughout the day without being bored. He will always be in my life no matter what happens to him. Veterans can do many things to help this world, like community service and going to war. My grandpa was a CB, which is the United States Naval Construction Battalions, better known as the Navy Seabees. From the U.S. Naval Construction Force, they are responsible for building much of the territory and permanent infrastructure at the U.S. military locations around the world. So my grandpa was never in combat. He was doing community service by plowing the streets and helping out with construction. The nickname Seabees comes from the first letters of the words that make up the unit's formal name, Construction Battalion. When said together as one word, the letters C and B sound like the word CB. Hence the battalion's ironic nickname. My grandpa loves to exercise and get out of town once in a while so that he can enjoy his day. He usually goes with his wife and goes someplace random, mostly on the other side of the town because he lives on the other side of the mountain next to Dayton, but more to the left near the golf course. I hope you enjoy the story of my wonderful grandpa.
We'd like to invite all of the elementary winners to come up and we'll get a photo. It's okay for you to take your masks off.
And Lillian, thanks for that story. We enjoyed that very much. Congratulations, everybody.
Next, we would like to move to the middle school level. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce our third place winner, Grace Emery, sixth grader at Bethlehem Lutheran School. Our second place individual is Grayson Ricks, an eighth grader from Bethlehem Lutheran. And our first place winner in the middle school category, eighth grader from Bethlehem Lutheran as well, is Madeline Lyons.
Okay. What is a hero? For some people, it is someone who saves lives or a person who changes lives. Well, the actual definition of a hero is a person who is admired or idealized for courage, outstanding achievements, or noble qualities. I believe that a hero is a role model, that your goal is to be like them. What is a hero to you? My hero is someone of whom I deeply trusted, Laura Sperry. She may not have done anything extremely extraordinary, but she is still important to me. Laura Sperry took care of me when I was younger. She taught me how to read and other life lessons. She lived a life of adventure. Laura Sperry influenced my life and all of the lives of the other kids she took care of. Laura Sperry, or Grandma Laura, as all of us call her, ran a daycare single-handedly. She practically raised me. Grandma Laura taught me many things, specifically important lessons and how to read. She taught me how to read when I was 3 years old. She is most likely the main reason as to why I love to read so much today. She also taught me other things, such as how to work hard and be productive, how to share, and how to experience nature. I remember in the summer, we would just spend the entire day outside, all day, every day. Whether it be gardening, running through the sprinklers, or playing on a swing set, we would always have fun. Laura definitely lived a life of adventure. Laura loved to ride her horses. She would always take them out on trails. When kids at her daycare got to a certain age, she would let them ride her most tame horse, Doc. I remember when I rode Doc, I felt I was on top of the world. Laura Sperry isn't with us anymore. She passed away a few weeks ago from either a stroke or a seizure. I'm not sad though, because I know that she lived a very fulfilling life. I don't know where she is now, but I know that I will always remember her. Laura Sperry had no outstanding achievements and didn't win any awards, but I still admire her, and I have so many fond memories from attending her daycare, and I am certain that I will always remember a few of them. I am so blessed to have known this woman, and I am grateful for her teaching me one of the best ways to live, fully.
We would like to invite all of our middle school winners to come forward for a photograph. And you can take your mask off so we can see your handsome face. Congratulations again, and thank you for participating. Next, we will recognize the winners of our American Essay Contest at the high school level. Unfortunately, a few of these folks and families are not here because they're traveling. But our third place winner goes to Alexandra Nurska, ninth grader at Carson High School. Our second place winner in the high school category is Eva Lindblom, ninth grader at Carson High School. And our first place winner in the high school division is ninth grader Jax Watley from Carson High School. And Jax is not here, so if you'll bear with me, I would like to read her essay. The feeling of depression is near unimaginable for someone who hasn't experienced it firsthand. The constant weight of existence combined with an aura of hopelessness and helplessness, nearly akin to bringing a butter knife to a gunfight, can destroy a person from the inside out. Being raised in a strict manipulative household full of narcissistic abuse, without the base understanding of the malevolence that lurked behind a mother's seemingly normal actions, would cause anyone to fall into this state. However, while it may be a rare occurrence, the worst environments can create the best people, as is the case for Kelly Phillips. Throughout all of this hardship and a seemingly endless list of additional trials, Kelly faced all of the physical and mental battles with steadfast of wills and continued to become the light of many people's lives, including my own. Growing up in Lamont, California, forcibly immersed Kelly in two separate lives, one in constant conflict at home and one trying to fit into a culture she didn't understand at school. Understandably, she engaged herself in extracurricular activities as an escape to the militant schedule and ever-growing expectations. In her own words, there was always the pressure to be perfect from my mom, but perfection kept changing. Then, to make matters worse, she was raped at 14 years old by a town hero who was about 20. But since he was so beloved within the town, she was accused of lying and seeking attention. This caused her to suppress her emotions of guilt, shame, and anger surrounding the rape, and only ended up confronting and processing it in her 20s. When she finally gained awareness of the incessant toxicity of her household, she became determined to move away from the town in which she endured all of her childhood trauma. Heading off to a 4-year college at 19, she managed to get her master's degree in criminology while suffering with diagnosed PTSD and depression. As the years passed, she jumped from school to occupation, trying to find somewhere she felt she belonged. Eventually, after running into an old friend who turned out to be a dean at the California School of Psychology, she found an intriguing internship in Los Angeles. Since then, she's worked many jobs in LA, including a 2 to 3 month span working as a residential teen treatment center, miraculously being the place our paths crossed. Although that 2 month span may seem like an inconsequential blip in the time of both of our lives, in the short time she managed to become someone I still look up to this day and strive to be like. As we got to know each other, she taught me what true validation and support meant, and all the weight I felt like I was carrying alone lessened, helping me understand that not everything was my fault. As she was learning about my personality, she figured out what helps me to listen and understand, teaching me how to healthily cope as a mentally ill 13 to 14-year-old kid. Not only that, but as we talked with each other, it sparked an interest in psychology within me. This interest developed into a passion, and this passion developed into a goal, helping me see for the first time that life is worth living and giving a chance. It may seem like an insignificant time in her life, but I left that treatment center with a newfound hope for a future I could enjoy. Now 43 years old, Kelly Phillips works as a successful forensic psychologist for a conditional release program built for mentally ill offenders who are in the community. In her lifetime, she's had to overcome so much and still strives to find new and exciting challenges, such as teaching a class at Pepperdine. The most impressive part about her story is the fact that she was dealt such a bad hand, yet she managed to not only make a successful life for herself, but also a life devoted to helping others. She has changed my life and so many others for the better, and will forever play a role and be a role model and a hero of mine. That was by Jack Swatley. Absolutely. Eva, would you like to come back? Well, Mr. President, members of the board, that concludes the winners of our American Citizen Essay Contest. Thank you for your support. This is something that we look forward to every year and certainly enjoy hearing from our students. So thank you again.
Thank you, Richard. I just wanted to extend one more thanks and appreciation to all the students who participated. And of course, to the winners, the stories tonight from Lillian, Madeline, and Jax. Always enjoy the stories, always well-written essays, so thank you for that. We're just going to give everyone a chance who wants to leave a chance to head out, and then we'll move on to the next item. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Yeah. Right? Oh my gosh, yeah. Okay, everybody, we're going to move on to item 7. I know we have some people out in the hallway. Public comment time. Comments will be accepted in person or remote through email on any matters within the authority of this board. No action will be taken on public comment until matters can be placed on the agenda. We just ask everybody who wishes to make public comment to come to the podium, sign in, speak into the microphone, and identify themselves. And all speakers are limit it to 3 minutes, no more than 3 minutes, and to not simply repeat comments that were made by others. And if you get a chance, if you could fill out the speaker sign-in form, that'd be great. If you don't, you can still speak, but if you do have a chance to fill it out, we'll give it to Renee, so we just have it for the record. So with that, I don't have any forms, so I'll just ask for public comment. Who would like to come first?
My name's Heather Coe, and I would like to know what is being done originally when I first started all this with what people are doing to help with kids that need help after losing a year of their education. I know that my son was going to Solutions, and it was a huge help. And I want to know why we spend more time on worthless, useless, woke programs with, you know, the LGBTQ, things that affect less than 1% of these kids and confuse them, instead of having programs for kids to learn to speak English well so that they can do better in school, or just any opportunity, no matter what course it is. These kids need some place to go with one-on-one where someone's explaining things to them if they're struggling. This is really a problem in our schools. And instead, the parents have to take care of it. And we don't know what's going on in the schools because there are no longer books. And I don't understand why everything has changed so much when it needs to go back to being simplified and learning the basics, giving the teachers free rein to teach what they need to teach. Quit putting so much on top of teachers, because there's a lot of wonderful teachers. Mr. Spence, who is my favorite right now, because he makes my son love history. And we need more teachers like that. And they are the ones that need to have the input in the decisions that everyone here is making, because they're the ones that are teaching our children. And when you have so many kids that struggle and that are behind because of COVID or don't speak English, they need to have a place to go, and they need someone to be there for them to teach them. And instead of having, like I said, these extra programs, which I don't care whether it came from the governor or legislatures, every county and district is different. And they need to acknowledge that. And I want you guys to fight for our teachers, because we are all different in different districts. And we have a lot of people that don't speak English here. We have a lot of kids that are struggling, that didn't do well with online learning. So I just want to know if you can come up with something that really helps. And I do know with my son in Solutions, before COVID hit, was doing amazing. And I'd just like to see more programs like that, and people focus on that instead of hiring more people to come up with better ways to do this or that. Just go back to the basics and ask these teachers what will help them and benefit them, because they're the ones that our children are spending all day with. Thank you.
Thanks, Heather. Next. Pepsi.
Betsy Strasberg, like to formally request the school board to put the Family Life Committee into the agenda in the new year, and so we can revisit the rules and procedures that has been approved by the board in 2019, September 2019. In particular, the areas of my concern are who is approving the courses, how the vacancies are advertised. Is there a term limit, or is it a lifelong appointment until somebody's child moves away from the district? And lastly, the opt-in or opt-out forms and the relevant information related to those forms as with respect to the middle school as well as the high school. Those are information that needs to be clarified. So that would be my request for the new year. Thank you.
Thanks, Betsy. Next, please. Karen?
Hi, good evening. Karen Stevens for the record. And I concur with Betsy. I would like to see what she's requested as well. And also, I would like to wish every single one of you a very happy Thanksgiving holiday and have the opportunity to spend it with friends and family. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. We wish you the same for the Thanksgiving holiday, too. Thank you. Richard? Yes, sir.
It's just something I found a little odd. I just want to bring it up to the board. All the volunteer organization committee or postings that they had for people who wanted to be on the 911 call and stuff like that were posted in Carson Now and such like. This is a very prominent spot, like an article done on it. But the family life thing for people who wanted to volunteer for that was in the legal notices, in the appeal, Nevada appeal. So it was like, I don't know anybody who looks at the legal notices, so it looks like it's kind of a closed shop. It just didn't sit right. So I just wanted to bring that up. So it should be in a more prominent place. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Happy holidays. Great. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. Any additional public comment? Okay, seeing none, I'll close public comment to in-person and ask Renee if we have anybody, if we have anybody through email.
Yes, Mr. Cassiopo, let me refresh to see if I have anything else. I just have the one comment. This is addressed to President Cassiopo and the trustees. This was sent in by Miss Peggy Sweetland. She hopes that the letter finds everyone well as we begin to start the beautiful holiday season. As many of you know, I served as the Special Projects Coordinator, McKinney-Vento, and Foster Care Liaison over the past decade plus, and retired last summer after more than 25 years in the district. I'm writing now to clarify some information that has been brought to my attention about the McKinney-Vento program that was presented at the November 9th school board meeting. I would like to begin by assuring the board, the district, and community that during my tenure, I adhered to all state and federal laws and guidelines and reported accurate data on a monthly, quarterly, and annual basis. I also worked diligently within our district and community to create a positive, welcoming, and non-judgmental program for our McKinney-Vento population, including throughout the pandemic when our sites implemented hybrid schedules and diminished seat time, making the process of identifying and aiding qualifying students more challenging. In the 10 years I ran McKinney-Vento in the district, I took seriously my obligation of transparency. To that end, I regularly compiled and disseminated meeting minutes, trainings, live academic trackers, and monthly statistics about our student population. I also collated a McKinney-Vento manual, as well as assisted with guidelines related to board policy and accepted practices. One of the most invaluable documents I worked on was the annual year-end and potential incoming McKinney-Vento student report, a key resource for administrators, office managers, registrars, social workers, and counselors who have confidential conversations with students. Since students are only qualified for the program for the current academic year and must reapply annually if their living situations permit, the extended team should be both diligent and empathetic in its outreach as it has been for the past few years. Some of our older students are not always forthcoming about their living situations, while others may choose to decline enrollment. Still, others find themselves living involuntarily with extended family due to trauma or financial hardship, like a parent losing his or her job. Students in doubled-up living situations indeed meet the criteria for our program, which is designed for all students without regular, fixed, and adequate nighttime housing. The November 9th presentation suggested that students were erroneously enrolled or not enrolled in the program under my watch, and that monthly and annual data reports on the program were not accurate. Both suggestions are misleading. I want nothing more than our program to continue to serve as a backstop for our most vulnerable students. I'm happy to hear that the Grants Department is now assisting the Special Projects Coordinator. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me refresh one more time, Mr. Cassiopo, make sure I didn't get anything late. That's all I have, Mr. Cassiopo. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So at this time, we'll close public comment and we'll move on to item 8. And again, I thank everybody for their public comment. Item 8 is discussion and possible action to approve the renewal of Family Life Committee members to serve 3-year terms, November 2021 to November 2024, in the following categories: medical representative, parent representative, and chairperson. This is for possible action, and Sheila Story and Cheryl Macy will be presenting.
Good evening. My name is Sheila Story, and I'm the chairperson for the Family Life Advisory Committee. I'm also the chief nurse for the school district and the school nurse at Carson High School. So yes, we do have 3 individuals who have sent in letters of intent to continue to be on the Family Life Advisory Committee. The first one is a medical representative. That would be Ann Dankworth. Ann Dankworth is a registered nurse, and she's been a registered nurse for over 30 years. The second one is a parent representative. That's Candace McDonald, and this would be her second term as a parent representative. And then chairperson, that would be myself, Sheila Story, who's been on the board and also the chairperson since 2015. Do you have any questions?
Board, Stacy.
Just out of curiosity, when we have these, we usually have a resume, a whole bunch of stuff describing their qualifications. I know they're renewals, but was there a reason that we only have 4 lines in both applications?
We were asked to present a letter of intent. We weren't asked to bring our resumes or an updated resume to the district office.
Mrs. Dankworth's been on before, correct? Because when I was on Family Life, and that was ages ago, she was on there then, right?
Yes, that is
Okay.
correct. She was on several years ago, then she took some time off, and then she came back on as the registered nurse,
Okay, thank you.
medical representative.
Just making sure my memory's good.
And just to refresh my memory, we had some resumes come forward a few meetings ago. I forget who that was for. Are these different folks now? Or?
Yes, that is correct. We had a teacher opening, and we had Jen Menifee put in for a letter, a resume, and interest to fulfill the teacher representative. And then we also had a parent.
It was a
right?
parent, I think, right?
Religious representative, and we had one individual come forward, and that was Vanessa White. She's a pastor.
Okay.
Do we have any other applicants, or these are the applicants that applied and then you guys figured out, or how does
This
that
year,
work?
those were the 2 applicants that did apply, one for the teacher and one for the religious representative.
And Stacy, I share your thought. I would like to see a resume.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a pressing, sorry. Some people ask if I take this off when I talk, so I'm going to just keep ripping my ears off. Is there a pressing time frame where we have to approve this, or can we ask for resumes and bring this back to the board so we have a chance to review their backgrounds?
Mr. President, if I could clarify, I believe item number 8 is to approve the renewal of individuals who are already serving. So you have Candace McDaniel is one, and she's been there for, I believe, 3 years.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay.
And
Yes,
then we also
that is
have
correct.
Ann Dankworth, who is also a prior member of the committee. And so they've shown interest in wanting to retain their seats, which I don't believe there have been any other individuals who have come forward with interest. And
No, not at this time.
And so at this point, what the board's considering is a reestablishment or a renewal of those members for another 3-year term.
Okay, I appreciate the clarification. And I'll withdraw the need for the resume because then we've already seen their information.
But
And
I
that's-
would like more updated information, why they want to keep serving.
Yeah.
What was maybe what they thought was the most important thing that they were involved in. Something that gives me a reason for 3 more years. And I know Mrs. Dinkworth is great. I mean, and I'm sure this parent is too. It's just, it's really hard to get a feel for anybody, especially if you haven't met them with 4 lines, even though it's a renewal. I mean, because a lot changes every year, and this is always brought up at the legislature. And you know, this is the part that I always harp, that I want to try to keep it real informational and stuff so that when we go and we testify, we can say, this program works for us. We don't need a blanket program for the whole state. This is how we do our program. It works really well. We have good attendance. We have good people. So I just like a little bit more information after 3 years. I don't need a resume, but something that tells me why they want to still do this 3 years later. I mean, because if they had renewed and somebody else had put a letter in there why they wanted to serve, it might have been really hard to renew them because there's just not enough information here.
Okay, no, I think that's a good point. I think going forward, anytime we renew, we should have more information, certainly.
And Sheila, I'm really glad you want to do it another 3 years. Thank you very much. We appreciate that.
I did put in there certain information on my letter.
That's why when I flipped the other pages, I'm like, because those were additional items today, and I'm looking at them like, what is this for? Because yours was so more professional, but I understand they're not professional people.
You know, what we could ask is we could also ask all of our committee members to update us on their current place of employment, how long they've been there, an area of their expertise, if that would help. And it would be nice to have an annual update on what our committee members are up to.
Yeah, and these two, they do mention what they do for a living. One is the Deputy Director of Nevada Health and Human Services, and the other one says, I'm a registered nurse currently working as an RN for EVMS. So we have that, but I agree some more information would be nice. 3 years is a long time.
Sure.
Ryan, I do have a question for you. There's 5 of us. Is there 5 of us? 6 of us present. Okay. Never mind. We had 5 last time I looked up, so. I even handed her something, so I should have known. Okay, well, this is an action item. Stacy, do you want to?
I move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees approve the renewal of Ann Dankworth as the medical representative, Candace McDaniel as the parent representative, and Sheila Story as the chairperson to serve on the Family Life Advisory Committee for a 3-year term, November 2021 to November 2024.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Stacy, second by Dawn. Any further board discussion? Richard?
So we're asking for further information for the next time they come up, or we're doing it this time?
No, I think it's too late to do that. I think in the future, though, when we have these presented to us, even if they're renewals, I don't need a resume, but I want to know why. Why do you want to do this? I mean, I understand if you're a parent, you want to be involved, but why is it so important to you? And as a nurse, I mean, she's done it so many times. She's not burnt out is amazing. So it's just like, I just want to know why. So because if there had been other people, that would have been a tough sell to not know who this person was, where we're looking at somebody else because it's the first time that they've done it, that it's they'd have a resume and stuff. So I'm just saying to put everybody on an equal playing field and to know that our committee is, full of passionate people that are there for the right reasons.
Okay, so we're talking about in the future then?
Yeah, I think because these 2 people were just asked to provide this information, they did what was asked of them. But I agree, going forward, I want more information. Okay, so we do have a motion and a second. Any further board discussion? Seeing none, any public comment on this item? Seeing none in person?
No, Mr. Casiopo.
Pepsi, were you? I didn't close it yet, so you're welcome.
I think there were some valid discussions from trustee Wilkie. And my other question was these 3 renewal positions advertised? Because when I look at the Board of Supervisors, commissions, and board, they advertise it first, even if the person has done a intent that they want to run again, but it's still advertised, and it allows other people to come before the board to say why they want to go for this position. The thing for me is that if this is a lifelong tenure, if you don't advertise and you don't say why you want it, then it is a lifelong. And in a important committee such as Family Life, it has built-in inherent biases and other things that we do want to avoid in the future. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. Okay,
One question. Sheila, do you know in the Family Life Committee's bylaws if renewal positions are required to be advertised?
I don't believe it does state in the bylaws that they do have to be advertised.
But I think by NRS, they have to be in that legal notice, correct? Because it's the Family Life Committee. That's where the NRS says we have to do, not advertise in the newspaper.
you have any thoughts on that, Ryan?
That sounds right to me. I can verify and get that information to you guys if you want.
Yeah, if we could get that, just so we know going forward, we're, one, we're following the NRS, and 2, we are giving people a chance who want to be a part of this, to be a part of this.
And we have done it prior in the legals, and we've done it in the paper, but I think we've been doing this so long and we never had anybody there that we might have got a little lax. Because how many times did we advertise so many things and come up and go, well, I have to bring it the next meeting because nobody came. So we might have got a little laxer, so we could definitely we didn't have a public relations guy either, so he can help with that next year.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I appreciate, sorry to put you kind of on, I won't say the hot spot, the warm spot, but that's good conversation. I appreciate it. And I think we do want to coordinate and make sure we know how we're going forward, and we're keeping it transparent and giving people that opportunity and understanding who we have on the board or who on the committee and who wants to stay. So with that, I will close it to in-person public comment and ask if we have any remote public comment.
Let me check again. I didn't a moment ago, but let me refresh. No, Mr. Cassiopo?
Okay, so we're going to close public comment.
Mr. President, if I could just add one little piece.
Yeah, please.
Because we do make these reports every fall, we have an excellent idea of who has either given their notice to not return or whether or not they've actually termed out. So we take those positions, knowing what they are by statute, and we do put out by word of mouth, but also formally in the newspaper, that these vacancies are existing. And we do actively seek people either by recruiting them or inviting them. But part of the reason that we've had people who have asked to retain their seat is because we don't often get a lot of people interested in the position. And it is something that I agree, it would be great to have new people every year, every time there's or multiple people, but we're just not seeing those interested folks. If we can improve our system through how we advertise, we'll certainly try to do that so that we can improve that. But we do want to assure you that we're not just haphazardly waiting for those vacancies to come without addressing them.
Okay, well, thank you.
And I believe that both Ms. McDaniel and the other lady has done a fairly good job, Dankworth, I'm sorry, have done a good job. Is that correct?
Yes, they both bring a very good insight and understanding to the material that is reviewed and approved. And they do give written comment and also verbal comment. They're both very active on the committee and how they truly feel about the resources that we're providing for our teachers within their classroom setting. And I would like to say, President Cassiopo, I'd like to invite all of you guys to attend a Family Life Advisory Committee. It's always open to the public and always open for you guys to attend to see how the meetings do go and how we run our meetings and what we cover and go over.
Thanks. Can you just remind us, when do you meet? When's your next meeting?
We meet on Mondays, and it's generally the second Monday of the month. Now, because of Monday holidays and that type of stuff, sometimes we have to bump it to the following week. But I believe I did send a schedule of meetings to all of you guys. I can also do that again, send you each a schedule of all of our meetings for the remainder of the year. We will be having 5 more meetings. We have 6 per year. We have 5 more scheduled.
And it's on the front page of our website. You can click right on Family Life Committee, it comes up, tells you exact dates, tells you the members, so.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's a lot easier. You don't need to go that extra work.
Yeah, you don't,
No.
if that's on there, yeah, we can look at that.
Okay.
Okay, so board, we did have a little extra dialogue, discussion, but that's good, but now it is back to the board for action. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate all the hard work you do, not just with this, but with everything.
Oh, thank you.
Let's see, item 9. And Cheryl, you too, thank you. I was looking at both of you, but we didn't make that eye contact. Item 9, annual review of the 2020-2021 statewide performance evaluation system for teachers and administrators in the Carson City School District as required by NRS 391.485, parentheses 2. This is for discussion only. Dr. Jose Delfin is presenting.
Thank you, President Casiopo, members of the board. Jose Delfin for the record. Nice to be here tonight. Happy Thanksgiving to all of you and our families and students out there and staff. Let me get the slideshow going here. Give me a second. Tonight I'm going to review our data for the NEPF, which is the Nevada Educator Performance Framework, or the state evaluation for our teachers and administrators. And this is for last year. And hopefully the color slides are a little bit better than what you have in your handout. So I just wanted to explain how the rating is scored. So there are cut scores for highly effective, as you can see on the slide, from one set of numbers to another. So that's the range. You'll also see the numerical range for effective, developing, and ineffective. So basically, as an educator, you want to be at least effective or better. And the 2021 NEPF was divided up into different weights. And you can see that on the slide. The general weight is for educational practice, which is 85%, and student performance, which is 15%, which is further broken down by instructional practice at 65%, and 20% for professional responsibilities, and then student performance at 15%. So I wanted to pause here just to see if you had any questions about how it's broken down. Mrs. Wilkie?
How did they do that with COVID? How did they figure out their instructional practice and their professional responsibilities with the way that, I mean, everybody should have scored a 4 in there with the COVID situation that we had. So how was it any different than any other year because of COVID?
Interesting question, Trustee Wilkie. I can tell you the feedback I received from administrators was they were able to Zoom in and observe teachers when we were doing remote. They were able to observe teachers when they were live. So I think there were a variety of ways that they were still able to do a typical eval, even though it was COVID. I think everybody did their best, to be honest, and they made it work.
Jose, I have a question for you too.
Sure.
I know it's gone back and forth over the years, the student performance piece. And it was, I forget what it was years ago, but it was in that, I'm guessing 15, 20% range. Then for a while it bumped up to like 40.
Yeah.
And then it went back down again because while we want to be output driven, we kind of learned that term at our, the workshop we went to. And that's important though. In these kinds of times, it's hard to get good output when when you're operating with a hand or two tied behind your back with COVID and the way we're asking people to operate and whatnot. But has there been any talk, I guess, of where I'm going as to, is this 15% a stable number? Is there talk about it going up or down?
I have an answer to that one, President Cassioppo. So actually for this year, the student performance or student learning goal is at 0. And that was through, I'm looking at my notes here. That was through the legislature. I think it was AB 57. So based on the ledge that just happened last year, that 15% went to 0. So the weight this year is 80-20 between instructional practice and professional responsibilities.
Okay.
So next year, it's poised to go back up to 15% as it was last year. So it really depends on each legislative year, to be quite honest, in how that's calculated.
Okay. So just so I remember, the legislature sets that, not the State Board of Education. I mean, I'm sure they have input, but.
Sure, it actually trickles from the Teachers and Leaders Council first.
Okay.
So there's a bunch of folks that are on that council, trustees, parents, teachers, administrators, that are represented mostly, I would say at least from the majority of our school districts. And then they give feedback to the state board. And then that then goes from the Department of Education to the legislature as far as what their proposal is. It's one of their BDRs, I believe.
Okay. Thank you.
That helps.
Yeah.
Trustee
Laurel.
Crossman?
I just have a clarifying question because you said this year, and so what we're reviewing is last year's educator performance framework for 2020 to 21. And so that one was 2020 to 21. That's hard. It's like a tongue twister with all these. So the one that we're reviewing, 20 to 21, that student performance was set at 0. And then for this current school year of 21 to 22, it's also set at 0. Is that what you're explaining?
So last year, the weight is what I'm presenting to you this year, 15%, which is the SLG or student performance.
Oh, so in 21, in the year
20,
ending 21. Oh my
Right.
gosh, it's like totally crazy. But okay, so it was 15 last year. Okay, so what did they base that off of? Because testing, and you had half the kids in Clark County didn't even take the test.
I wish I could answer that, but I know that a lot of the assessments that were used were either teacher-driven, grade level driven, or another set of assessments that were maybe standardized. But for the most part, it was teacher-driven for those assessments. So yeah, I think they did the best they could, and I let the administrators know to have as much lenience on our educators as much as possible, because it was a different year. Yep. So next year, Trustee Crossman, I'll be reporting this year's NEPF. So, and it'll be at 0 SLG, right? It does seem like a backwards.
We all realize that it's very difficult for the principals to do these evaluations due to all the duties they have and the limited amount of time they get to visit the classrooms. And so a lot of it does, like you said, fall on the teacher. It's kind of a self-evaluation, is that correct?
Yes, the teacher has a lot of input into the NEPF, so they do their own self-evaluation, and through checking in and through data gathering, it should be a collaborative effort between the evaluator and the teacher. The good news is, if I can turn to the next slide, 98% of our teachers were either effective or better. So the great majority out of the 466 of our educators, again, 98% were either highly effective, or exempt. Now, if you look at the first row, the majority of our teachers are regular classroom teachers. So out of the out of all that, we had 54 exempt, which means that for 2 consecutive years, they were highly effective, which meant that they didn't receive a summative assessment on last year's eval. So, and the rest of them did. So, which is a great sign. That means they're very proficient educators. So, out of all that, we only really had 8 developing teachers, which means that they were probably on an educator assistance plan to help them get better as instructional teachers and be able to hone their craft. And I know that behind me, Mrs. Fuson's department with her coaches and everybody else, including our principals and vice principals, are really helping to develop those teachers and to getting them into the effective range. So it's an all-out effort.
And I think it's probably good to know that when you're highly effective for those consecutive years, I mean, that, number one, that's fantastic. I know one of those teachers. And but still, I think it's important for the public to know that even when you're exempt, there's still kind of a checks and balances going on. It's not a complete free pass.
Correct.
So, I mean, they're still being looked at. They're still submitting some things, and you know, they don't just, you know, take the year off and put their feet up.
No,
You know,
they don't.
there's still some dialogue and collaboration going on in terms of how they're doing.
Well stated.
Even the feet up.
I have one question if I could.
Sure.
Teachers on special assignment, they cannot be evaluated the same as a teacher in the classroom, right? So how are they evaluated and who does their evaluations, I guess?
Trustee Varner, that's a great question. Our teachers on special assignment don't fall in the NEPF at all. We use the old Danielson self-directed, and that's pretty intense as well. I can't say that's a watered-down evaluation at all. And those are, again, a collaboration between either the principal, the director. I think last year, Mrs. Fuson did a few of those. So it just depends on who has supervision over those TOSAs. So I can tell you they're pretty extreme as well. I know when Dr. Perdere was in charge of TOSAs, he would bring thick files of evaluations to our department, including a thumb drive of all the work that these TOSAs did. So I wouldn't say it's an evaluation light at all, if that helps you. And so I wanted to also point out that all the rows below the teachers, the librarians, the speech paths, social workers, school psychs, school nurses, and school counselors receive an NEPF, but it's a different variation of the NEPF. It's more nationally based on their standards. So each one of those disciplines has a national standard that the NEPF is based out of. Any questions on that? So overall, on the teacher ratings, I'm not as fancy as Mr. Fueling. This is my poor attempt to do a bar graph. So this is just a different look of how our teachers rated overall. And you can see the small bar for developing, and again, 98% of our teachers above the effective bar.
How do you know, maybe you're getting to it, how do we compare with other districts, at least in the state? Do we have a sense of that? You know, in terms of like percentage of highly effective versus effective?
That's a good question, President Cassiopo. I can put that together for you and maybe email it out.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I'm just curious.
I want to say we're just a little bit better than the state, but I don't want to get out ahead of myself and not have the data to tell you.
Okay.
So regarding the school administrators, same cutoff scores as the teachers, not anything different. Theirs is based out of educational practice at 85%. Their SLG, or student performance, is at 15, which is further broken down by 65% in instructional leadership practice, 20% in professional responsibilities, and 15% in student performance. And yeah, it was, as Mrs. Wilkie indicated, tough to evaluate our school administrators under COVID as well, but we tried to do the best we could in assessing their performance. I can say 100% of our administrators were either effective or highly effective, and only one was exempt, meaning that person had 2 consecutive years of highly effective. And this is my poor attempt at a bar graph showing that there were no administrators ineffective or developing. And that's all I have. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer any of the queries you have.
I guess one more for me, just when you have a teacher or an administrator who's developing, what's the process? I mean, I understand it. I'm assuming it's usually folks that maybe are new in those positions, but what kind of training do they get that's above what everybody else is getting?
So for anyone who's ineffective or developing, an automatic trigger is an educator or leader assistance plan. And that is a collaboration between the supervisor and the staff member who is in jeopardy, if you will. And that typically happens mid-cycle or before. So around now is when a lot of supports start to filter in to the educator by way of coaches, by way of the supervisor enlisting any supports that they may have to improve practice. So it's quite a long and in-depth process, and everything has to be documented along the way to ensure that they're getting all the support they need to be successful.
And what's the expectation? If you get rated developing twice in a row, at what point do you have to make hard decisions? I mean, or have we encountered that?
Yes, we have. If they're probationary, pretty much anytime they have an effective to developing, depending on the severity, they could be not renewed. If they're veterans, they have to have 2 consecutive years of being ineffective or developing. And then those educators go back to probation. So they get to start over again and get the same probationary treatment as any new hire who's in a licensed position.
Okay, thank you. Any additional questions? Rich?
I hope I'm not off base here, but if we have a long-term sub for an extended period of time, are they evaluated?
They're not.
Somebody checks on to make sure that it's somebody won't in the classroom?
The expectation is that the principal or the VP go in there and just make sure the lesson plans are followed. Usually for a long-term assignment, a teacher is out, and that teacher helps with the lesson plans or that grade level or that department level. I know we've had a few out this year already due to COVID. So the long-term subs are not evaluated on much of a measure except to make sure that they're on task, if you will. I do know that a lot of our student teachers who are taking that long-term assignment as subs are receiving a mock NEPF, if you will, along with their supervising mentor from the university that they're coming from. So they're getting a lot more feedback. So we have a handful of student teachers who are currently filling those long-term sub positions who are getting probably more feedback than our regular teachers.
Yeah, I know just to elaborate on that, when my daughter was going through that, she was meeting regularly with the vice principal, mostly, a little bit with the principal. Her team teachers, one of them was kind of assigned to make sure, if she needed any help, she was getting help. And then she had a college, I'm not sure what that person's title was at UNR, and that was like a weekly thing. I mean, she was meeting with like 3 people all the time.
Indeed.
So at least at the intro level, they're not just following a lesson plan. They're being watched over is what my experience was.
Absolutely. And any of our long-term subs that are in a long-term assignment are getting some kind of feedback from somebody, either the administrator or the grade level person that's in charge of that grade level or that department chair, just to make sure that they're not dying out there.
Yeah, I knew that, but I wanted the public to hear it. Thank you.
Sure.
Any additional questions or comments for Dr. Delphin?
Well, because Mr. Trustee Walker's not here, I have to ask his question. How many long-term subs for the year long do we have? He asks it every year.
I don't have that number right now, Mrs. Wilkie. I know we have a handful and a half, so I can get that exact number for you.
Okay. Seeing no more questions from the board, thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
we're going to move on to item 10, discussion and possible action to modify the annually budgeted pay-for-performance staff payment for the 2021-2022 school year. Approval of this item will have a fiscal impact in an amount not to exceed $500,000. This is for possible action, and Andrew Fueling is presenting.
Thank you, Trustee Casiopo, President Casiopo, my apologies, and trustees. AJ Fueling for the record. So a little history. Back in 2016, which predates some of you here, the board established this pay-for-performance payment. And what it was a little extra recognition for all the good work that our classified, certified, and administrative employees do for the kids of Carson City every day. Annually, starting that year, the board budgeted $100,000, and that $100,000 was supposed to cover a payment of $100 to each of those employees. So basically, we had at the time about 1,000 employees, so it was about $100,000 again budgeted altogether. That has continued annually since then as a part of the budget approved each year. This year, with many vacancies, as as you all know, this is a public sector, private sector, big and small issue that we're all dealing with. It appears that the total compensation amount that we have budgeted, we will very likely come in under budget on that amount. So the question had come up at a previous board meeting about what we were doing to recognize and retain staff. And with that vacancy savings, it presents a bit of an opportunity. And in this case, that vacancy savings it's fairly significant. So again, this year, we have budgeted a $100 payment to each staff member in the district. However, due to vacancy savings really in excess, and actually I want to clarify this because I don't believe I don't know that the item comes across clearly. With my intent with this agenda item is the fiscal impact amount not to exceed $500,000. The intent was that the entire pay for performance payment would now not exceed $500,000. So it wasn't $500,000 on top of the $100,000. It was $500,000 in total. So just to clarify, I don't think that violates anything, but I want to clarify that that was the intent. But effectively, with the savings there, which is in excess of $400,000, that additional amount, if you think of it in terms of, and this is not perfect, but if you think of it in terms of an additional $100,000 is an additional $100 per employee, I think that's kind of a fair way to think about what the impact is. So if you would like to consider, say, increasing it to $200, that would be an additional $100,000 on top of what was already budgeted. $300,000 would be an additional $200,000 on top of what was already budgeted. So with that additional money, effectively you could go up to a payment of $500, and that would easily be covered by the vacancy savings within the district's budget at this time. So this was again, something that was brought up at a prior meeting about potentially doing something to recognize the work of all our employees in this difficult time. And so just wanted to bring this to you as an opportunity to consider.
Any questions on the board? Laurel?
AJ, I do have a question. Because I'm remembering when we originally budgeted the pay for performance, that wasn't that required by state law at the time that we set something up for that, and we decided not to pit teachers against each other, but to make it for all staff. Is that memory correct?
That's exactly correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And so if this money were to, if the vacancy, the funds that are left over from not filling all of our staff positions were left in the general fund account, there's the possibility that those funds would be swept back into the state's education fund because it would exceed our ending fund balance percentage?
That's correct. So under the new pupil-centered funding plan, districts whose fund balance is over 16.6%, which we are, if your fund balance would increase beyond that point, the state would sweep those funds to the state's education stabilization account. I'll say that we are still waiting for better detail on the mechanics and calculations of that, but the basic understanding is that you effectively, if you're above that limit, you cannot increase your fund balance or the state may take it away.
And AJ, I know when we talk about, well, this is pay for performance, and then the presentation we just had by Dr. Delphin was the performance framework. And we're not in a position where we have anybody listed as ineffective, but if we did, would those people still get this money, or would we have the ability to say, look, you have to be at a certain threshold, if you will, to get compensated for performance?
If we were to adjust that, I think it would take some action of the board to change kind of the process that we would want to use at this time.
I mean, it doesn't appear to be an issue for us, but, going forward, I would want to make sure we don't have we're not obligated as a board or have a perception that we're giving people a bonus for being ineffective.
But at the same time, we also have staff members who would receive bonuses, but they're not evaluated by the same criteria. So
Yeah, it gets a little tricky.
That would take a lot of figuring out.
But it's just something to think about. I mean, as we go forward, AJ's a smart guy. If we decide to go that route, we could probably figure something out. Richard?
AJ, I'm just curious, the salary savings money, can it be spent in a different category?
It can. So that is an option that we would have. There is, I'll say, there is more savings than this right up front with those numbers, and I think the intent is we're right now kind of evaluating what are some other larger needs within the district, especially kind of these more one-time needs. We don't want to obligate ourselves to something that will continue, but that is something actively happening within departments right now.
I think the teachers and the other staff are deserving of a performance pay boost, but I'm hoping that maybe somewhere in the budget, I know that we're going to need new buses before long, and maybe is there going to be money left over to buy a new bus out of the other money?
So on top of the 2 amazing new electric buses that will be coming in, transportation is a department that I have spoken with to get quotes on a bus. There's also many other smaller transportation vehicles they have. There are Astro vans, I think, that are over 20 years old that are used for transporting smaller groups of students. Within operations, we have we have 2 pickup trucks that are used in operations that are older than I am. So that is also something that we're looking at potentially using some funds to replace.
Laurel?
So just a question as we're thinking, because I don't have a problem with I don't want the state just to sweep this money, and I'd rather it go to our staff. But if there's other areas of savings and we have other needs, one-time purchases like vehicles, is this something, what would you recommend that we approve at this time? And if there's savings from other areas, this is something we could come back and revisit, or is there a timeline on when this, is the pay for performance only a one-time? Does it have to be done at a certain time? How does that work?
The pay for performance, it could be done at any time. Historically, we've made the payment anywhere between December and February has kind of been the range of time. When I bring next board meeting the amended budget to you, as I get feedback from departments about potentially some other ways we could use some funds, I'll be building that into that budget. So ultimately, when that budget is approved at the next board meeting, and I'll point out any areas where those changes were made. That would all be a part of it. So so money can be transferred later. I mean that is within our authority. But it'd be nice as much as possible to have that kind of set up and ready to go for when we come here next time.
Stacy?
What is our ending fund balance? I always thought it was around 12. It's now over 16.
So no, it's okay. In dollar terms, the ending fund balance is just over $13 million. And that works out to 20.3%, I believe. That was at the end of the last fiscal year.
Any other questions for Mr. Fueling? Richard?
Laurel, did you ask what he recommends?
What would you recommend at this time that we transfer over to?
Sure. I think that this is, in terms, no money actually needs to be transferred with this. So because this money was budgeted with the intent of it being used on salaries and benefits, there's no transfer is needed. The money is being used in the way it was intended. So in that sense, you don't have to worry about anything. If there is anything else that comes up with the amended budget, it'll be noted where those changes were made. So it would be easy enough to do this immediately because it's all kind of ready to go the way it is.
So if we did it, currently there's 100,000 set up in there for, which was $100 per staff. If we added another 100,000, that would be 200 per staff. If we added an additional 200,000 to have a 300,000 total, that's 300
Correct.
per staff. So is there a recommendation that you have? If you want it, do you want it to be 200 or 300,000?
I wouldn't say that I have a recommendation, but I would just say that I feel comfortable if you would go increase it from 100 to 500, which would be a $400,000 increase in that the total value of what the pay for performance is. I would feel comfortable with that as far as that there is certainly savings that covers that amount.
So we're not taking from anything else. I mean, this is, like was mentioned before, this is because of our staffing levels. We have this extra money sitting there, and our options are use it here, use some of it here, save some, or the state takes it. Okay.
Correct.
Oh, sorry, I left my mic on. Just one more question. So if we did 300,000, or we put an additional 200, so we've got 300,000. That's $300 per employee. But then if there's still 200,000 for that, can that be transferred to buy 2 more buses, or what can we do with that? Does that have to stay for employee costs?
It can. That would then that would be a part then of a budget amendment that we would do.
So can you give me what the percentage of ending fund balance would be, like for the 100, for the 300, for the 500? Or does it not even really affect it?
I mean, you could. That's some on-the-spot math, Trustee Wilkie. It would be like, would be less than, or no. Sorry. It'd be like 1%-ish. Yeah. Well,
Eight- 500,000 would be
yeah.
about 1%. Okay.
Yeah. I think that's about. And again, just to reiterate, the concern is that while it's a 1%, if it isn't spent and it sits there, the state potentially would be sweeping that away.
Lupe.
So, is it possible that we use some of these funds for additional paraprofessionals to help those students that are in need? I know that question was brought up from the public comments, and that is something that we should, really put more effort into, looking at.
Sure. So I think there's kind of two parts to that answer. So we certainly could put more money towards paraprofessional positions, but that I believe is the highest vacancy category of any job we have in the district right now. So while you could create those positions, we can't hire what we already are looking to hire. Now, I think, and this is kind of another step to this, and this looks more towards using the ESSER funds that are available to the district, potentially putting together something, looking at like hiring incentives, trying to draw people in to fill those types of positions. Absolutely, that is something that we are actively talking about right now. It's just taking a little time. Unfortunately, I would have liked to bring this to you earlier. The changes that have happened with the pupil-centered funding plan, just in terms of kind of the practical accounting side of it and all the changes behind the scenes, all the really tedious and boring things that nobody likes but me. It has taken a lot of time. So now I feel like I have a pretty good feel of what is happening, given all these new funds that we've approved, moving staff members that, depending on the types of, like we now have an English learner fund, so our English learner staff, moving them over there and trying to understand kind of where these money flows have gone and the overall impact of that. We're at a point where feeling much more comfortable about understanding what is really happening. So now with those ESSER funds that are available, knowing what our general fund position looks like, and then knowing what ESSER funds may potentially be available, we could utilize some of those funds to put together some type of hiring incentive or incentive package otherwise for staff. So that is something that we'll likely be talking about in the near future. But so that kind of went long-winded, but it's kind of there's two pieces to it. But it's clearly a concern that we're talking about working on. We just haven't gotten there just yet for a final answer.
AJ, if I could too, we're talking about a one-shot expenditure of money. If you put it towards hiring additional people, that becomes part of the budget. That's a long-term obligation. So I don't know if we could really put this money towards hiring somebody or people.
I like Lupe's question, and I agree with the point about hiring staff, but then I'm wondering, is there some way, thinking outside the box, that we could use some of the funds in here to hire students as tutors to help tutor fellow students, to tutor at elementary schools, or do something like that? Is there some thought of how we can use that?
So we haven't talked about that in terms of these funds within the general fund, but I don't see any reason why ESSER funding couldn't be used for something like that. And really considering the struggle we are having with staffing, that may be a unique way to use some of those funds to get some more support for students.
So if we spend the $500,000 on these bonuses, is there something else that's gonna get cut or hurt or put on the back burner because of that?
No, not at all.
I'll just share with you my thoughts. I'm kind of leaning towards doing maybe 300,000 and then holding off on 200,000, seeing if it's something that we find a need to amend the budget for. If we don't find another, if we have other savings in other areas of the budget where we don't need it, we could always do that as an additional bonus to the staff. But that's kind of where I'm kind of not ready to dump it all in one yet, but to do part and then wait and see if there's another need.
Yeah, I like the conversation. I was going to bring it up later, and I still will. But this whole, having some pot of money to help with tutoring or enrichment programs or something, I think is important. I think using it for parapros, I like that idea too. But like Richard said, you think of this basically as a bonus. We have it now. It's not a long-term commitment because we may not have it in a year or two. So I'd like to have some money left over for some kind of enrichment programs or whatnot. So Laurel, I haven't decided on a number yet, but that's kind of what I'm thinking is having a little left over.
In that same realm, though, we do have grant funding that comes up, and those teachers and those paraprofessionals know that it's only for a year, too. So it
Right.
doesn't necessarily, maybe it gets us through this hard part, and they know that it's only a year or 2 years or whatever we have funding for. But that shouldn't be, it is a deciding factor, but it doesn't have to be an ongoing expense if we are upfront and tell them, this is almost like grant funding. We put away much this to do this many paraprofessionals, but it's only for a year. And if you're good with that. And I know, Dr. Delphin, that makes it really hard to hire people when we only have them for a year. But it is also a chance for people who maybe want to see what the district's like and don't want to do a long-term commitment.
But AJ, didn't you say it's hard to hire even the openings we have now?
Yeah, that's the highest vacancy position, and it's not even a year. We're basically through a semester, so it's one semester left.
So Jose Delphin, for the record, I can tell you that we have very little in the hopper with regard to parapros. So it's nearly impossible to find them. Not that it is, anything that we can't overcome, but it's been tougher, certainly with this economy and COVID. Even with $200,000 that AJ's thinking left over from the $300 bonus, that might get us 5 parapros, maybe. So just to kind of think out loud, if we use the $200,000 to try to find parapros, it's not a lot of paras.
Well, and I think we have to be careful, Ryan. I don't know if we have to be careful. We're kind of getting maybe a little too far to the side on this, but and so that can be another discussion. But just to bring it back, we would have options to use money that we don't spend. So whether it's paras or some other kind of enrichment, it would give us some option to do something with. I think that's the point. So now we just have to decide if we want to do this at all, how much.
When would this money have to be expended?
So it, basically by the end of the fiscal year, it would have to be expended by.
So if we did $300 bonuses, we have 200,000 left over. That 200,000 would have to be spent before the end of this next semester.
So, yeah, I think the easiest way to think about it is if you did say a $300 portion now, and then potentially a $200 payment down the road, if we paid it on June 15th or June 30th, we're fine. We're good.
Yeah, Richard, Mr. Stokes.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I just want to remind everyone that we have been working without the staff that we intended to have this school year. And because of that, it has placed extra burden on our current staff members. Typically, we allow for our staff to have a certain number of preparation time. Because we don't have either regular staff or in some cases where we can't find substitutes, our teachers are doubling up. They're taking extra kids into their classrooms where we can't find substitutes. And so the thought here was, as we're talking about pay for performance, our staff have gone above the regular day in many cases. And so consequently, we thought that this might be a way to pass along a message of appreciation by providing this bonus amount at Christmas time. And these dollars are monies that have been saved because we haven't been able to hire those staff. And so just along those lines of thinking, I guess I would just wanted to make sure that we were clear on the intent. This didn't just come from no thought. It came about because we had this condition, and we were saying to our folks, thank you for working as hard as you have been.
So AJ, in that vein, assuming the board approves, say, the whole amount here in the 500,000, if we were to have a later conversation that, hey, these enrichment programs or whatnot, we got to find a way to do something. Do we have money to do something like that? I mean, what's our, I don't know how much those kinds of things cost. And I'm not talking about hiring parapros necessarily, but do we have money in place to where if we had staff to do it, we could offer some additional programs for students in need?
Good evening, Tasha Fuson, Associate Superintendent Ed Services, for the record. I just want to inform the board that one of the steps we did take when we were planning our budget this year was to have every school write a loss of learning plan, which provided before school or after school, summer programming, et cetera. So that has already been budgeted for in our ESSER funds, in our ESSER application. One of the things that has become a concern for us is that because of lack of staffing, because lack of folks to be able to run after-school programming or willing to run after-school programming, we actually have a lot of extra funds that are now available in that category as well that we're trying to figure out how to spend simply because we don't have the staff to run as robust programming as we would like to. So while we can continue to set more and more money aside for these programs, that money will not be spent if we cannot get folks to actually take on those jobs or those roles. So I just wanted you to be aware of that. Every school has a loss of learning plan that has been put in place and funded through our ESSER plan. So again, to set aside additional money when we haven't spent the money we have, and we're trying to now rewrite that grant in January to account for the money we haven't spent there, is just something you should be aware of.
So I think that answers my question, so thank you for that.
In reality, I believe that the staff deserves a performance bonus. And I think $500 is really not a large amount of money to give each employee. And I think for what they've been through and the extra work they've done, they're deserving it. That's my opinion.
Well, and right, Richard, and you're right. The staff has been asked to do quite a bit. In some cases, double lesson plans, other work. When we're short on teachers and substitutes, kids, 12 extra kids are coming into your classroom, and you have to find a way to teach them. So they've gone over and above, and I don't want anybody to think I'm not in favor of giving our staff a full bonus because, quite frankly, they deserve a lot more than that. I just want to have the conversation and make sure that we understand, the avenues for this money.
And I feel better knowing that there are other funds, and AJ had mentioned that there were other savings in other areas, but just, trying to be cautious about making sure we can cover anything. But if we've got other savings that we can use for that, that makes sense to me as well.
Jose Delphin again for the record. Just as a reminder too, Mr. Stokes jogged a little bit of my memory a little about this year. We've also had office staff serve as noon aides because we need folks to help, with the cafeterias and help with nutrition. We've had custodians spread throughout the district. We have nurses who have done a lot of work and testing and making sure our kids are safe. So classified staff as well as teachers and administrators. Administrators are also subbing, by the way, in a lot of those classes. So it's affected just about every level in our district with regard to additional duties as assigned. So I can tell you, we're all breathing heavy. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know what's going on over here. We got something going on under the desk.
There's a printer under my desk that
Yeah.
whenever I move, I hit it with my knee and it starts up.
Okay. Any further board discussion, or somebody want to make a motion?
I'll go ahead and make a motion. I move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees approve the modification of the budgeted pay-for-performance staff payment from $100 to $500 for the 2021 to 2022 school year, with a fiscal impact not to exceed $500,000.
So just so the motion is clear and with what's on the agenda item, the agenda item isn't listed as a per employee allocation. It's changing the total expenditure from $100,000 to $500,000.
Would you like me to rephrase my motion?
Or you could just accept the clarification if it's
I will
what you
accept-
intended.
I will accept the clarification because that's what I've intended.
And I'll still second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further board discussion? Ryan, I don't think it's an issue, but I'll just bring it up since my wife's a teacher, but she's not getting an unfair, she would be part of the whole district if she got something like this. Do I have any pecuniary interest that I have to be concerned about?
I think it's smart to disclose. I don't think you have to abstain. If you feel that you can be objective on it, it's going to everybody, and you're not going to have any say on what employee gets what amount. So
Right.
I think the disclosure is fine.
Okay, thank you.
I'll make a similar disclosure that my wife is also a teacher.
And just to disclose, because he's within the third degree of consanguinity, is
Wow, I haven't heard
my
that one.
brother is an employee in the district as well.
What was that again? Consanguinity?
Consanguinity.
I have to look that one up.
It means they're related.
Yeah. Okay. All right, thank you. So we have a motion and a second. Any further board discussion? Seeing none, any public comment on this? Seeing none in person? Do we have any remote public comment on this?
Let's see, one moment. No, Mr. Cassiopo, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Public comment will be closed on this. Back to the board. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Item 11 is approval of the consent agenda. Anybody want to make a motion?
I move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees approve the consent agenda as submitted.
Second.
Sorry, did somebody make a second? Lupe, motion and a second. Any board discussion? Any public comment on this? Seeing none in person, any remote?
No, Mr. Cassiopo.
Okay, back to the board. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 12, informational items for discussion only. Any questions from the board on the informational items? Seeing none. Item 13, request for future agenda topics. I guess I have one, maybe two, just on this issue of I'm not sure where we're at. I know we're suffering a learning loss to some degree because of COVID and whatnot. Do we have enrichment programs and whatnot in place? I assume we do, but maybe an update at a future meeting on what we're doing would be helpful. And then on the Life Committee, I would just say at the next Life Committee presentation, if we could just make sure if it's in there and you just have to point us to it, that's fine, but making sure we understand as a board how it's advertised, what the terms are. This way, if people are interested in serving, they know how, and we get the information we need per Stacy's point, whether it's a reelection or whatnot, that we understand where people are at and make sure we can, make a good decision. Any additional requests for future agenda topics?
Joe, may I add to your
Lupe,
first
yeah.
request? Are we also able to request for data on students in need of additional support? Can we add that to your request?
Sure. Just include that in
Include the students
in
that
that presentation,
that are
what
in
kind
need
of
of that support.
yeah, what we're seeing, how many kids might be in need, or the different, however you would break that up.
Thank you.
Don?
I definitely like to get a better understanding. I know, AJ, you just talked about it as far as the state sweeping the funds. We had a 20.3%. It sounds like that might even go higher with some of the staff savings. And we got to get down to 16.6. Looks like 3.7%. We're going to have some additional funds there. I'd love to just understand that a little better from you.
Next time, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, seeing none, we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.